Karoline Leavitt was asked, what about this Vanity Fair bombshell story where Susie Wiles, Donald Trump's chief of staff, is saying all sorts of things that make Trump and his inner circle look really bad. Even if she doesn't mean all of these things maliciously, they make Trump look really bad. What's the deal? And this was another one of those moments where Karoline is clearly struggling to keep the story straight. Not because it's an unfair question. It's a very fair question she was asked, but the defense is collapsing. The interviews are recorded. And so what they are left with is an inability to deny that Susie Wiles said any of this stuff, and only the idea that the context is missing. The reporters are being disingenuous. The article is mischaracterizing what was said. And this is the tell. What she doesn't do is deny that Susie Wiles said any of this stuff, deny that as reported, it makes Trump look incompetent and terrible, nor does she tell us what the correct context actually is. Let's take a listen. Here is Karoline Leavitt addressing it.
As for the Vanity Fair article, Michael, I'll take your question directly. This is, unfortunately, another example of disingenuous reporting, where you have a reporter who took the chief of staff's words wildly out of context, did not include the context those conversations were had within. And then further, I think the most egregious part of this article was the bias of omission that was clearly present. And we see a lot of this when dealing with the media every day. You will leave out important context, leave out comments and facts. You know, many people in this building spoke with that reporter, and those comments were never included in the story, probably because it didn't push this false narrative of chaos and confusion that the reporter was clearly trying to push. So what I'll say about our chief of staff, as you've seen from not just myself, but also the entire cabinet, and a groundswell of support from people on Capitol Hill who don't even work in this building, about how incredible Susie Wiles has been to President Trump. And he's been able to accomplish so much because of his leadership. And
all right. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Susie Wiles is great. So a couple different things. First of all, Karoline Leavitt mentions a lot of people were interviewed and not everyone's comments were included as some evidence of wrongdoing. Now, I have dealt with that personally. I have been interviewed for stories, and the things I say when they aren't directly relevant to the story as it is being conceived by the writer sometimes get left out. And you know what? I find it really frustrating. I find it frustrating because I take time out of my day to speak with a reporter, and then they don't even include my comments. Now, is it always because of narrative creation in a malicious way? No, sometimes it's just my view actually just doesn't really fit or help to flesh out what is being said. I've stopped participating in those asks, and I will ask a specific set of questions when a reporter contacts me. I will say, first of all, is this article being written on spec, or is this going to be published? Because one thing that's happened is the article just doesn't get written. I don't want to waste my time with that. I'm very busy, to be perfectly frank, between kids and the show, and being interviewed for articles that will be canceled is a waste of time. I will also ask, will my comments definitely be included, or might they be excluded? And if they go, yeah, I'm talking to like 20 people right now, just generally, if it's not interesting, I'll go, yeah, you know what? I just don't have the time. It doesn't mean the reporter is malicious. This is just kind of how things work. Secondly, only only the part 2 of this report is out. There are 11 interviews that were done. We don't know what will or won't be included in future parts. So secondly, there's that. But I want to kind of get to the bigger picture here. This was not an unfair question from the reporter. The defense is collapsing. They keep talking about missing context. They don't say the reporting is wrong. They don't say the facts are incorrect. They say there was disingenuous behavior by the reporter. Words are out of context. The article mischaracterized what was said. What does that really mean? I mean, what sort of context could you add to Elon Musk is an avowed ketamine user, for example? What could you add to that really changes in any serious way what this is about? They aren't saying anybody misspoke. They aren't saying somebody went rogue. They are just arguing that context is missing. And this is a really common trend in authoritarian regimes, which is that when someone inside the operation says something that is damaging, you don't argue the claim, you delegitimize the messenger. And that's what they're doing here. The bad actor is not the person who spoke, in this case, Susie Wiles. It's the journalist who repeated it. It's the people that quoted Susie Wiles' own words. And the framing tells you where the loyalty lies. As of this moment, Susie Wiles is protected. She's still useful. she's still in Trump's good graces. So Leavitt can say, the reporter was wrong. You weren't supposed to hear it like that. It was removed from context, wildly out of context. That collapses when you say, what context would change the meaning? And my guess is that eventually they will come up with something like, well, she is generally supportive of the president. Okay, that really doesn't change the context, that she is acknowledging and communicating things that she was up to and including aghast about. She uses the word aghast. Nuance doesn't really change the substance. So Karoline Leavitt is doing what she always does. She treats journalism as this very offensive, horrible thing. And it starts to look here like this is less about communicating the perspective of the president, which is what a press secretary is supposed to do, and more about just attacking reporters, which is what this administration has regularly done. This is what people do when they run out of runway. And it's happening for a simple reason. The administration keeps producing stories that you can't clean up with a few talking points. You can't contextualize away total chaos, and you can't spin away internal admissions. So the mask is slipping. All they have is context without explaining anything about it. And then when Karoline Leavitt went on Fox News to talk about this, it only got worse. If you are scrambling for a meaningful last-minute holiday gift and running out of real ideas, Aura Frames can save you. Our sponsor, Aura, makes high-quality digital photo frames that showcase your favorite pictures and videos in a way that looks like a real print. I've given these to so many different people. I gave one to my dad, preloaded with family photos. He still walks by it and comments on pictures he hasn't seen in years. It's a gift that lands, and Aura makes it really easy. You can preload the pictures before it even ships. You can add a personal message, and then you can keep adding photos and videos all year long. It's free. It's unlimited. The setup takes just a few minutes, and every frame arrives in a premium gift box. There is still plenty of time to get an Aura frame shipped before Christmas, and you'll get $35 off their best-selling Carver mat frames when you go to auraframes.com and use the code Pakman at checkout. The link is in the description.